Welcome back, Quick Reader. How is your reading? How was your practice yesterday? Yesterday, as a review, we went through and we discovered your base rate. And the base rate, again, is your words per minute. And that number usually ranges about 200 to 250 words per minute, because that's about the average reading speed. And why I'm so excited is we're going to dramatically, through this process, increase your reading speed. Some of you may double it, some of you may triple, some may quadruple. Really, the sky is the limit. But it's not just reading speed, remember. The reason why you join this program is, yes, you want to read faster, but you also want to understand better. We're going to make you a faster thinker, a better, clearer thinker, be able to remember what you read, be able to have better focus, and that's really what's in store for you. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a technique to boost your reading speed 25 to 50%. Some of you actually use 75%, and that's incredible. I mean, think about that, because reading takes time, and time is money, right? And so many people would have loved to improve their investments 25 or 50% over the past year. And so you're going to do that in this lesson, so get ready. Now, when we're talking about reading, we're talking about two parts. We're talking about reading speed and reading comprehension, because it doesn't make sense to have one without the other. It doesn't make sense to read really fast and not understand what you read. And on the other side, you don't want to understand everything and read real slow, because that's not very efficient either. And so there's two parts, speed and comprehension. Over the next few days, we're going to focus mostly on speed, because it's very difficult to train both things at once. So we're going to teach you the mechanical skill of training your eyes and your brain to be able to accept information faster. Now, there are three obstacles that we need to get over the next few days that's really holding you back as a slower reader if you feel like that's you. The first obstacle, so these are the three obstacles to effective reading. The first obstacle to effective reading is lack of education. Now that makes sense, right? We already talked about reading as a skill. It's not something you were born with the ability to do, right? You weren't born and just went out to the waiting room and started speed reading like magazines and such. It's a skill. And what's the thing with skills? You can improve any kind of skill with what? With the proper training. The challenge is, when's the last time you took a class called reading? How old were you? Not like a college lit class, but how old were you when you took a class called reading? You were probably 7 years old, and that's a challenge because most people are still reading like they're 7 years old. In fact, when we're talking about reading, it's not a reflection of your intelligence. It's a skill. You either learned it properly or not. And if you feel like you're a slow reader, you were taught to be a slow reader. Let me say that again. If you feel like you're a slow reader and you're reading 200, 250 words a minute when you know 400 or 500 or 600, 800 is possible, if you are a slow reader, there's no such thing as a good or bad reader. There's just a trained reader and an untrained reader. We were taught to read slowly. So the first obstacle to effective reading is lack of education. So you're fixing that right now because you're part of this program. Congratulations. The second obstacle to effective reading, this is a big one for a lot of people. Lack of focus. I mean, have you ever read a page in a book and forgot what you just read? Does your mind wander sometimes when you read? Are you easily distracted with this monkey mind looking at different shiny objects? If that's you, it's not your fault. So if you have a problem focusing when you read, which a lot of people do, it's not 100% your fault because we weren't taught how to have focus. And here's the challenge. A lot of people believe if I ask you to read faster, what do you think will happen to your comprehension? You think it would go down, right? Now we have students in over 180 countries that join our online programs like yourself, and we found something really surprising, that the faster readers tend to have better comprehension because they have better focus. I mean, this is mind-blowing, right? Because there's a myth out there saying that if you read faster, your comprehension will go down and decrease, but in actuality, it gets better to a point. And now why is that? Here's the thing, your brain is this incredible supercomputer. I mean, you were gifted with this incredible device between your ears that controls everything, and it can process information faster than the fastest computers. Yet when we read, we feed this supercomputer of a brain one word at a time. And metaphorically, what we're doing is we're like starving our minds. Even when I was speaking this slowly to you, what did your mind start feeling? You're like, oh my goodness, it's so slow, and your mind would start wandering, right? You start losing focus, you start falling asleep, you start thinking about other things. Aren't those the exact same things that happen when you read? You start to fall asleep, your mind starts to wander, you lose focus, you start thinking about other things because the information's coming to you too slowly. And here's the thing, if you don't give your brain the stimulus it needs, it'll seek entertainment elsewhere in the form of distraction. Let me say it a different way. If you don't entertain your brain, it'll seek novelty elsewhere in the form of mind reading, in the form of distraction. Now, we went through two of the obstacles to effective reading, lack of education and lack of focus. So the third obstacle I want to introduce to you right now, and there are more that we're going to go through in the course of this program, is called regression. Regression, and this is a big one. Have you ever read something and you found yourself going back and rereading those words? Another word for regression is backskipping. Reading research studies show that up to 25 to 30% of your time can be spent just rereading words. And here's the challenge, it's unconscious. You know what I mean? You're not doing it consciously, you're doing it unconsciously. You're not aware of it. It's kind of like second nature. It's just a bad habit we picked up with our formal education. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to unlearn that process of backskipping throughout this program and get really excited because that's where you're going to boost your reading speed another 25–50%. Now here's the thing. Do you have to go back and reread words unconsciously? Of course not. Let's say that there was a television set and you were watching a movie, you were really excited about watching it, but somebody off in the corner, every 30 seconds they had the remote control and they were just rewinding it and rewinding it. Every 30 seconds rewinding it. First of all, how do you feel about that person? You wouldn't feel really happy about that person, right? Also, would it help you understand the information, the movie better? Of course not. It would break up the momentum of it. And it's very similar to reading. When you go back and reread words, you're actually breaking up the momentum and the rhythm of your reading. So not only is it going to hurt your comprehension, but it takes longer. And remember, the time is a thing you can't get back, and that's the biggest challenge. And so we're going to show you a really simple technique, and it's a tool that you have already with you to help you to overcome this backskipping. So what is this secret tool that helps readers read 25 or 50%, some people 75% or more faster? It's a visual pacer. So what is a visual pacer? It could be a pen, a pencil, a highlighter, a mouse on a computer. It could be your finger, a visual pacer, meaning that if you underline the words, not touching the actual page of the book or the screen on your tablet, but just going right above it, using your finger or a pencil or a highlighter, and you don't skip anything, you just go through and you read the words like you would normally read it, that reading will be about 25 to 50% faster. Let me say it again. When you use a visual pacer and you're underlining the words, not touching the page or the screen, your reading speed will boost about 25 to 50% on average. Some of you will actually improve even more than that. So you might have been taught not to use your finger while you read back in school. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, is to step into a common sense place in your brain and judge by results. It is not to necessarily listen to your old schooling or even listen to me. Judge by results. I'm going to ask you in a little bit to actually use your finger while you read, and then you'll see what the difference actually is. But as people, we always want to know why. Why, Jim, is using your finger while you read going to increase my speed? I'll give you a few reasons right now. So the first reason you want to use your finger while you read is children do it. We always talk about children are the fastest learners, right? And we call it organic learning. They'll naturally use their finger while they read until we teach them not to. So naturally, they want to do it. The second reason you use your finger while you read is because you use it naturally. And you're like, Jim, in the last session, I didn't use my finger while I read. But when I asked you to count the number of lines that you read, what did you do? Use your finger, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, or use your pen. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because you know what I know, that using a visual pacer helps you to what? It helps you to focus. The third reason why you want to use a visual pacer while you read is because your eyes are attracted to motion. Your eyes are attracted naturally to movement because it's a survival skill. Thousands of years ago, you're a hunter-gatherer and you're in a bush and you're hunting lunch, right? You're hunting this rabbit or this carrot, whatever your diet is, and the bush next to you moves, you have to look at what moves in your environment because it's your survival. Because number one, it could be lunch, or number two, you could be lunch, right? Either way, you have to look at what moves in your environment. And so when your finger is going across the page, underlining the words, your attention is being pulled through the information as opposed to your attention being pulled apart by distractions. And finally, the fourth reason why you want to use a visual pacer while you read is because it's how your nervous system or your neurology is set up. What do I mean by that? Certain senses work very closely together, meaning that, have you ever tasted a great tasting peach before? Like something like right off the vine or something that's been right at the farmer's market, not something that's been sprayed or waxed for 6 months sitting in a grocery store. Have you ever tasted a great peach before? Now in actuality, there's a surprise here. You've never tasted what a peach tastes like. In actuality, you smell the peach. But your sense of smell and your sense of taste are so closely linked that your mind doesn't know the difference. It knows the difference when you're sick though. When your nose is congested, what does food taste like? It tastes different, right? It tastes bland or maybe has no taste because your sense of smell and taste are so closely linked. Just as your sense of smell and taste are closely linked, so is your sense of sight and your sense of touch. Let me say that again. So is your sense of sight and touch. They're very closely linked. When people use their finger while they read, they'll say to me all the time, they say, Jim, I feel more in touch with my reading. Feel more in touch with my reading. And here's the thing, you know this. Often, let's say there's a toddler here and you have your keys and you look at the toddler saying, look at my keys, look at my keys. What will the toddler do? Grab those keys, right? Because in order for he or she to feel like they can see it, they have to what? To touch it. In fact, when people lose their sense of sight, how do they read? With their what? Their sense of touch, Braille, right? So I'm going to offer you to test this for yourself in this lesson, is to use your finger while you read, or a pen or a highlighter while you're practicing your 10 minutes a day. And when you're doing it, it might feel a little bit uncomfortable because it feels a little bit different, because we've never done it before. It might feel a little bit weird. For some of you, it'll just be like, wow, I just have better focus. But I'm going to ask you to push past that, because your biggest potential, the best version of yourself, has to do with playing and practicing at the edge of your limits. If you felt completely comfortable doing everything that I'm about to teach you over the next few weeks, there's no growth. Does that make sense? That if you go to the gym and you're not putting yourself under a little bit of stress or a little bit of a challenge, there is no change without that challenge. So I'm going to challenge you to use your finger while you read and then judge by results. And here's the thing, it won't necessarily be easy. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I'm telling you it's going to be worth it. So here's your homework you're going to do right now. You're going to continue to read for your 10 minutes a day, and you're going to continue to schedule it, all right, every single day. And what I want you to do is just use your finger right now, pick up where you left off. You don't have to time yourself, but just put comprehension aside and just get used to your eyes following your finger. And again, you're going across the page, underlining the words. You're not touching the screen, you're not touching the page, just right above it, and just practice following the tip of your finger and read. If you get comprehension out of it, that's a bonus. But right now we talked about setting comprehension aside for a few days, and just let's focus on this mechanical skill called speed reading. Feedback is the breakfast of superheroes. So share within our community what your real, true experience was. Did it feel difficult? Did it feel fun? Did you have better focus? Was it a little bit weird? Just be honest. How did it feel for you? And if you want to go beyond 10 minutes, go beyond 10 minutes. But do at least 10 minutes, because that's where the training begins. And I'll see you in tomorrow's lesson.